Yeah.
All right, I'll call it order the March 3rd meeting of the Site Review Advisory Committee. Note that we have a quorum. We shall be all curious. First item of business is the approval of the February 3rd minutes. Any comments, changes? Discussion, motion?
I recommend approval with no change.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes passed. We have a few items of old business. The first being the request of Aurora LLC owner for property located at 150 Portsmouth Boulevard, requesting site plan approval for the construction of 3 6-story multifamily residential buildings. Associated site work including parking, driveway access, utility, drainage, landscaping, lighting, and reconstruction of Portsmouth Boulevard. Property is on Assessor Map 213, Lot 12, and lies within the Office Research and Gateway Neighborhood Overlay District. Welcome.
Thanks, Peter. Good afternoon, Patrick Crimmins with Time Bond. I think you guys all know the team, but I'll quickly go through my Ben, also with Time Bond. Behind me is Kimmery with the King Company, Joe and Jeremy with the Tidemark team from Ownership. So we had submitted a comprehensive package to you folks the end of last month in response to the last TAC meeting that we had attended with you folks and some further coordination that we had with the DPW staff regarding the additional comments that we received at last month's TAC meeting. We appreciate you folks forwarding us comments in advance for this meeting. So if everybody's okay with it, I'm just gonna go right into those comments. With respect to the comments, I really see them, there's kind of two buckets here. One is like some of the real technical stuff, which is pretty easy, I think, to address or can be done so through stipulation and further coordination with DPW. The other is, the bucket is really related to the stormwater, which ties into the Atlantic Heights Emergency Access Road. So with respect to that portion of it, Time Bond is actually working on a scope for the design of that road. We knowing that the city is working to construct that in the near future. So it's actually completed. It's on the bottleneck. I was on vacation last week, so that'll be completed this week and shared, and the applicant will coordinate further with the Department of Public Works and planning staff on the Atlantic Heights and drainage design. So that is related to items 4. Basically, that's going to be my response to items 4, 12, 13, 14, and 21, because they're all tied to the same thing. Just jumping back in though to the comments and the technical items. Number 1, Pocket Park does not meet the definition of community space type. So I guess just the request from staff to just kind of explain that a little bit further, and then I think I can provide a response to it, but just wanted to understand how that doesn't meet the definition.
I think the definition says in between buildings, so it's on the end of a building. So maybe it could just be included in the park.
Okay.
Which is, even though it's across the street,
Could be perfect.
part of it. As long as you provide, is there a crosswalk there? You could provide it, well, they can go across the crosswalk, so you just include it and not call it a pocket park.
Okay. Easy enough. Great.
Yep.
We will do that. The next one's related to confirming the rim elevation of PTD 1. So the rim elevation of that trench drain is currently proposed above the flood elevation of the downstream connecting manhole in the 100-year event. So that should be okay, but we can confirm it further. The next one, shift PDMH 103 north a bit to ease the flow path. Agreed, we will shift it slightly to the north. Number 4, I touched on it, but this has to do with removing portions of the head wall. There's comments about the design of the drainage related to the emergency access road. I think I touched on that at the beginning. Number 5, confirm in writing the entire run of sanitary sewer from SMH 1398 to PSMH 1 is currently 8-inch PVC. So Time Bond agrees to investigate that further and coordinate it with the Department of Public Works. Number 6, the proposed fire hydrant on the south end of Building C should be located 40 to 50 feet south on the opposite side of the road, about 10 feet past the asphalt sidewalk. The hydrant will be relocated accordingly. Number 7, full width pavement repairs, mill and overlay need to extend up and completely repair the roadway in the area of the power extension. So we actually have been looking at this further. We think there's an opportunity to put the duck bank under the new sidewalk that we're already constructing, so we plan to look at that further. We looked at it preliminarily before this meeting. We think it's a possibility, so what we asked for there is just a stipulation that we continue to work with the Department of Public Works and PSNH on the final design of the electric layout. Number 8, CMMP is required, acknowledged. 9, third-party oversights required, acknowledged. Number 10, city arborist to inspect and approve all plants installed in the right-of-way, that's also acknowledged and noted in note number 4 on the planting plan. Number 11, drain manhole covers in the right-of-way should be ordered without locks. All covers in the right-of-way shall be Ergo XL. They are Ergo XL, but we'll make sure that they're noted such to be without locks. 12, 13, and 14 I mentioned are related to the drainage design and the emergency access road. Number 15, add sidewalk to the south side of Building C to allow access from the road to the parking fields. That's a good comment. We agree to explore that further, and if it can be done, we'll add that to the plan. Number 16, the 3 southernmost street parking spots should be limited due to sight lines. We agree to eliminate those last 3 street parking spaces. The 16 7-piece sign must be 21 inches by 15 inches. We will update the sign dimensions accordingly. Number 18, we may need stop signs and stop lines at 3-way angled intersections within the parking lot. So we agree to take a look at the parking lot where it might be appropriate to add stop lines and stop signs. Particularly, I think the place that would be the most important is where the driveways first enter the site. Along those buildings, those initial accesses where you'd be coming in and out, that's where the most traffic would be, and that's where you're gonna have the most speed. So we'll take a closer look at that, but we'll implement them where appropriate. Let's see, slope detail is not included in the plan. Include the slope profile and detail in the plan, so we agree to include the southern slope profile plan into the drawing set. Number 20, the existing remaining fire hydrant on Portsmouth Boulevard on the north side, closest to the Homewood Suites driveway, did not make it onto the C501. We will confirm the location and make sure it's shown on the drawings. And then lastly, number 21 is related to the Atlantic Heights emergency gate being secured by Knox Brox. Again, that's related to the design of that road, but it will be incorporated as part of that design. That is all the comments that we have from you folks. So if there's any additional comments or questions, we're happy to take them.
Thanks, Patrick. All right, open it up for comments, questions. Nothing at the moment? All right. I'll let you all think and open it up for any public comment. Anyone present or on Zoom wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that portion and open it back up for discussion.
They've addressed everything that we've asked for. To get through a second meeting, except for the things that we got the details on to do. You guys comfortable working with them on?
Yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion to move this forward, planning board, with the condition that, all the comments that were read through today, all get finalized to the,
Satisfaction.
satisfaction of the public works. Sorry. Got a busy guy.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for finalizing that.
Alright, item B, old business, the request of Sagamore Avenue CBC LLC owner for property located at 1151 Sagamore, requesting site plan review approval for the demolition of existing structure and construction of 4 standalone condominium single-family structures with associated site improvements. Property is on assessment map 224, lot 19, and it's in the mixed residential office district.
Good afternoon, everyone. Drew Olechowski with Haley Ward. Also here with me is John Shagnon from Haley Ward and Kevin Neville on behalf of the owner. So we were last before the committee back in January. At this meeting, we were provided with a number of comments from both planning and public works, which we've been working on over the past few months to address. Much of these comments were related to the drainage plan for the site. It was determined that there was a bit of off-site area that flowed into our existing site, which we didn't originally accommodate with our drainage plan. So we have gone ahead and revised our plan to address that, mainly through raising our site by several feet. And we've also added robust infiltration systems both in our driveway and behind the units. So those were most of the comments from Public Works. There were some other items, just making sure our sewer system was sized correctly, and a number of other utility-related items. We also received additional planning comments just this past week, which we did provide responses for on the portal, and John has passed out a few copies to some of you. A few of these comments were, again, related to the drainage design, which I think at this point we have addressed with Public Works. There were some related to the landscaping plan, just making sure that the landscaping plan lined up with what our site plan showed. This included guardrail at the end of the driveway, which we did go ahead and remove and replace with curbing at the direction of Public Works. There were also comments on guardrail on our proposed retaining wall and other things of that nature, which we have addressed at this point. There was another planning comment related to turnaround in our driveway. Our thoughts with this was that the site is mainly intended to be used by residents and guests intermittently. Each of the driveways for each of the units is approximately 20 feet wide, which is wide enough to accommodate 2 vehicles. So with both those and the garages, we aren't expecting for all of the driveways to be blocked at all times, and so those would be able to act for turnarounds for guests visiting the site. So that's our solution there. And yeah, other than that, I think all the comments were fairly minor, which, as I mentioned, we did provide responses for on the portal, but I'd be happy to try to answer any other outstanding comments you all might have.
Any comments, questions from TAC members? If none at the moment, I'll open it up for public comment. Anyone here wishing to make public comment on this application? On Zoom, if you're on Zoom, raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion and open it back up for further discussion or motion.
So the idea on the new curbing instead of the guardrail is that you can plow right over it?
That's correct, yeah. And we did leave a gap there just for stormwater runoff relief, just to get from that gate, the driveway to the forebay.
And how's that plow gonna turn around? Have to put back into somebody's driveway?
That's the idea. He'll have to coordinate with the residents.
Does that turnaround also pertain to like an ambulance getting in and out of the site, or?
So we didn't provide a fire truck turnaround just because these buildings will be sprinklered, so that wasn't required. So again, it is the idea that they will have to back out or use those driveways.
would you say the depth of the driveway?
The driveways are also about 20 feet. That's 20 feet
20
too.
to 40 feet tall.
Yeah.
So in that emergency spillway at the very back, what storm is gonna cause that to?
We actually didn't run a storm that even reached that spillway. We have sized that infiltration system in the adjacent driveway to accommodate the 50-year storm. So we didn't even check to see if that's needed. It's really just like absolute worst case scenario. If something gets clogged or something like that, it'll be used. But any of our models didn't even reach that point.
Okay, great. Are you guys all set? Stipulations? I'm all set. I'll make a motion to approve. What kind of stipulations do we need? We don't need a CMMP on
No,
this. Unless you guys have things you're still working on, I think.
No.
Let's make a motion to send to the planning board,
Second.
favorable recommendation.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, item C, it's the request of Atlas Commons LLC for property located at 581 Lafayette Road, requesting a second extension for site plan approval. Property is on assessment map 229 lot 8B, and lies within the Gateway Corridor.
More stuff.
So in order to get a second extension, they have to come back to TAC and then go to planning board.
I think on the site plan side, you can decide if you send this to planning board. We have to go to planning board?
Yes. It's up to both bodies whether they want to have a public hearing or not.
Oh, public
So,
hearing, okay.
I mean,
Yep. All right, thank you. John Shagnon from Haley Ward, representing Atlas Commons. And the request is for a second one-year extension of the approval. This is 581 Lafayette Road. Couple of additions to an existing building that was going to be mixed use, some apartments and additional restaurant space. And the applicant just needs more time to get the project in order. There were a lot of community improvements, including an off-site public realm, pedestrian sidewalk connection between Ledgewood Drive and the high school. So those plans were combined in the submission. And I think we did receive some comments by email that I handed out response to. We can go over those. I didn't see any other comments. So it's suitable to proceed there and not go through more of an explanation of the site, or if you want to talk about the plans more, we can.
I just want to know if there's anything that had changed on the plan.
In the cover letter,
It says it here, so maybe you could go through those ones that you got on here.
sure, yep, sure, yep. So after the approval, the architectural team did more building development. And so some of the changes that have been made were as a result of final architectural plan and coordination with the site plans. We amended the sheets from the planning board approval set to remove any encroachment into the New Hampshire Department of Transportation right-of-way. So those changes are from the perpendicular parking, which did encroach, to angled parking, which doesn't. Plans were all updated there. And then the cover sheet, we had retitled it document permit set, so we just left that there. No change to community space easement plan, existing conditions plan, demolition plan, and site plan. For this submission, we removed a few plans as they weren't germane to what we're asking for. No change to the lighting plan. And the utility plan, we had relocated a fire hydrant, an electrical transformer, due to the altered parking. That was in coordination with your predecessor as far as the hydrant goes. The grading and drainage plan, we coordinated with the understory parking on the west side. There's a parking level that went into final architectural design. So it changed some of the grades at the edges, and we followed up and just revised some grading on the plan. That's on C6. So it's just some edge grades and interior grades underneath that area on the left or west side that's sort of open to parking at first floor level. There was no changes to the drainage structures. On the open space plan C7, we did make some minor corrections in the totals. The on-site community plan didn't change. Landscape maintenance area, again, just some minor square footage updates and no change to the fire truck and delivery truck plans. And the rest are just detail sheets and they did not change either. Since the approval, it's worth noting that we went to the city and worked on the public realm improvements, which involved going to the Trees and Greenery Committee because there was some removal of public trees. We got their approval. And we worked with conservation and the DES and obtained a wetland permit for the wetland impact. So those have all been accomplished and are ready to go. And I included the permit in the application material. We received some comments and I handed out a response too. So first is that it appears the existing bathroom sewer services will be directed to the grease trap. Domestic waste should not be directed to the grease trap. So we updated the utility plan from the site plan set C5 and added some notes to connect the grease trap flow to the grease trap and connect the sanitary flows. Those are noted. Zach, in the below the existing building label. Those are the two notes there. The second comment was to add a culvert to the public realm improvement plan located somewhere between the shed and the pool building, and minimum size of 15. And the 8-inch culvert may still be necessary, so we left the 8-inch culvert in and we added on the sheet 5 public realm grading plan a catch basin so we could get depth, and it goes under the sidewalk and exits 50 feet of pipe. And we added 3 details to third end section detail, trench, catch basin detail. And I don't know, it might be appropriate to put a stub on that basin in case some other flows want to be connected in the future, or we can discuss that. Third comment is in the area of the wetland crossing, the path should be raised to be no lower than elevation 19.5 and constructed a layer of crushed stone 12 inches thick to allow the water to pass and remove the culvert. So on the sheet 5, actually on the profile plan, P1 plan, it shows that area around station 2+0 where we raised up the grade, and then we've taken out the culvert and we've made a note to see detail I on sheet D2 and included that detail I on sheet D2, which has the preferred construction for that crossing with 12 inches of 4 to 6 inch diameter crushed rock. The top items remain the same, and a Marafi 160N fabric between the gravel and the rock. And so if there's any other comments, be glad to talk about them and address them. But I think that concludes our submission today and discussion.
All right, open up for comments.
Did your parking calculations change at all with it going from the 90-degree spaces to the angle spaces? I didn't see a parking table in there.
Yeah, those parking calcs were updated, I believe, in the planning board submission, because at that time, we had to update to the angled parking. So, I'm looking at the submission that we made to the planning board at that time. Site plan contains a total of 178 parking spaces. There's just an encroachment of 30 spaces on a portion of land owned by the state of New Hampshire. With the alternative parking layout, 7 spaces would be lost, and I think we took that into account, and
So you still meet your.
so we still met the requirement. We knew that was coming. We didn't update though for the change in the ordinance, the 1.3 reduced to 1, so
So that gives you a little more.
gives us a little cushion, yeah. And I know we submitted for a conditional use permit.
Right,
Just-
that'll go to.
That just goes to planning
Yeah,
board.
right, that just goes,
But they don't need input from you on that part of it.
not from TAC.
And I don't think the ordinance has changed in regard to the, or vested, right? So any change, it doesn't matter if there were changes to the community space requirements or any of that, 'cause this is still vested
Right, and I don't think they're having, related to this, that would
related
affect
to
this.
this district.
All right, any other comments?
And another one, on the basketball court in the cul-de-sac, have you worked with the school department on that?
Yep.
They're okay with it? It's a post out there?
Yeah, I worked with Ken Lynchy and originally we had it in a different orientation. We moved it around.
I didn't know if having it out in the pavement like that, it could get in the way of any vehicles needing to use the area for a turnaround.
I think there's a difference in the post versus where the hoop is. Well, no, it says the Jersey barriers temporary in the summer.
Right, but the post is still gonna be
The
through the
post is in the
asphalt.
pavement, yep. So I guess we could discuss whether you want that to be revised. Putting the post at the edge of pavement kind of makes it not a square foul line. Could be that the hoop and net are temporary in the summer only, right? And then you can take it all out in the winter and plow.
Who could do that?
Who could do that? Well, I don't know. People that use it.
So who's requiring the basketball hoop?
It's out there now. It's been there a long time. There's a hoop there now, and what I understand, maybe not as much now, but there used to be pickup games there all the time. It's sort of the cul-de-sac is not really used unless you went there by accident, because everybody
So are you
turns in.
modifying anything, or are you just leaving it there, what's there now?
In the cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
We're just leaving it there.
So maybe we just call it out as existing and ignore it?
Is the post in the pavement now?
Uh,
Is it off the pavement?
let's see.
Shadow, I can't tell. Looks like it's not.
Behind the curb currently, as of November of 2024.
There was an issue just a separate issue, you're talking about conflicting, like, right now, there's a tree that overshadows
Mhm.
the basketball hoop, and instead of trimming it, I actually would like us to move out, you know what I'm saying? It's a pretty prize oak down there that's out into the cul-de-sac, so we talked about, that was one of the things we did, is move the sidewalk around to save some trees at the end of the cul-de-sac. And
Okay, well, the post is behind the curb.
Yep.
For the basketball hoop. So are you putting a new one in, cause the actual hoop is ripped off, the
Yep.
picture.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe you could just shift it to the side a little bit and leave it behind the curb, like it is now. It's fine for pickup games.
Okay.
We wouldn't want it in the pavement,
Okay, you can
okay?
do that, yep.
Second thing in that area, you're showing like square, like you're coming around into the cul-de-sac, you got these square corners that nobody would actually walk like that. Maybe you could put some nice rounded corners in that people would actually follow. Be a nice 15-foot radius or something, somebody would actually use. Engineers like these straight lines, but nobody actually walks that way. So if you could look at that, John. And the third comment is I asked for a culvert, you put in a catch basin, which I understand. But if we're gonna have a catch basin, it needs to have a beehive grate,
Okay,
okay?
Yep.
And then final placement has to be approved by the Department of Public Works before installation.
okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Other than that, I'm good with this.
All right, I'll open it up for any public comment on this one. Seeing none, close it and back up for a motion. This is for a second one-year extension.
I'll make a motion to that effect. Adding the stipulations that I just outlined.
Catch basin, rounded corners, move the net back, move the pole back.
Replace the pole more or less in kind.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks.
You.
All right. On to new business, item A. The request of 304 Maplewood LLC owner and Planet Fitness applicant for property located at 304 Maplewood Avenue, requesting amended site plan approval for a 1,011 square foot addition to the existing office building. Property is located on map 140, lot 7, and lies within the CD4 L2 district and historic district.
All right, Joe Coronati, Jones and Beach Engineers. We got involved in this project for a small building addition on the rear of this existing structure. The building's in the historic district, and McHenry Architecture's already gone forth to the HTC. They received approval for the building addition style. And then we had to submit for an amended site plan. We did go through the city records to find some, if there was a historic site plan on file. There is one from 1988. We did find a couple others as well. And we did find one from 1995. I don't know the history to this. It's called out as a medical market. And this is the particular site plan that shows the striping of the parking and calls it out as existing asphalt or, let me see, existing, I guess it calls it out as pavement and striping, and all the curbing was already there in 95. And just bringing that up, I saw some of the staff comments, and I think one of the major ones is about the parking and the striping locations. And so I wanted to just provide this group with this plan as well as an old photo of the site that shows it. More or less in this configuration, we did change the parking striping in the front of the building. So I wanted to just send those down if you care to take a look, and then ask you some more questions about the parking once you see those items. Because I understand the parking sizes are not compliant. And then I wanted to, I guess, determine if you'd rather this is how the group's been parking there for a long time. The photos from 2011, street view, and the plans from 1995. The group that owns it now has been there since 2007, so I think they've been operating in this location with more or less that layout of parking. So we wanted to keep that parking, although the sizes of the spaces may be smaller than required. And if you'd rather us have fewer parking spaces but compliant sizes, which would then require a conditional use permit, we can, I think, do that as well. I just didn't know. It's obviously the building's from 1940, and it's not really sized to your standards at this point, but the parking lot isn't. The proposed addition doesn't really add any staff to this building. This basically just allows them more space. Right now they have shared, a couple of the offices are shared, and their meeting room has been taken over as an office. So this addition allows them to kind of just spread out. They don't anticipate having any more staff at the site or any more vehicles, really. I don't know if you have any thoughts to that. If you would, I guess the question more or less is, would you rather we remove some of those parallel spaces? And then I think that would require a conditional use permit for the not having enough parking for the building? Or would you rather we ask for relief from the parking space size and keep the number that we have on site, continue to use them that way? And as I said, the only change we made to the front was to the front, where we went with 2 parallel spaces. Because as you can see in that photo, the handicap space they're utilizing doesn't have any, it doesn't have any space to get out of the handicap parking with the layout that they have, and they back more into Maplewood with that style layout, in my opinion. But we can do either one. But so what you have in front of you from us is only 2 spaces in front, where they previously were showing 4.
So Joe, I think we need to look and confirm if the city approved that plan, that
All right.
95 plan. Because we were looking at the 1988 plan,
Right.
thinking that was the most recent. That didn't show the additional parking, but if that was approved by the city, then I think that configuration is still valid.
All right.
If you change it, I think then you gotta
Bring it up to
comply. We'll need to verify that.
There's not a lot of sign on that plan that it was approved. I mean, there's no endorsement block, there's no.
What was it? That was in one of our files?
Yes,
What, was it a site plan file or variance file?
I assume so, yeah. It's called as a site plan out for a medical market. Doesn't have a lot of detail. I mean, it doesn't even say who the applicant is, who the owner is. It just has zoning, and if you were to zoom in, which you can't see, but the dates back in from 95, you guys you'll be able to look at that. So that's something you could let me, and then I guess depending on your answer on that, which way you'd rather us proceed with relief, because I think we do need This is most, they normally, if you've ever been by there, they normally don't have the parking lot full, but there can be times where they need that number of parking spaces.
So you need 9 spaces, right?
By code, I believe so, yes.
And there are 5 here?
Yes. So there's 9 by code, all along the front, which we could just keep those, eliminate the 3 parallel spaces and comply with your ordinance. It's a small office. They don't get a lot of customer. This is not a retail store or anything like that. They don't even have signage on the building at all. It just has the address.
I think you'd still need to verify that that plan was approved, because the parking's in front of the building, so we need to verify that 94%. Can't do that in the city. Parking in front of the building.
No, that would be very
I can keep rolling if that's okay. The existing conditions, we will provide the dumpster location. Basically, it's in the, it's just next to the building. And it's a rollout dumpster. They do park in front of it now. And when the trash guy comes, they just move their cars. Once again, not a lot of high volume trash at this location. Comment number 3 was relative to the shoreland. This site is within 250 feet of the marsh out back. But I was curious, is the city exempt, or is any parts of the city exempt from shoreland permitting?
Not here.
All right. So we could file a shoreland permit for that work. Comment 4 related to 2 zoning sections. I know one of them is screening, and the other, I think, is parking in front of the building. I think a lot of the old plans we saw all had parking in front of the building, but that one was about parking within 20 feet. So 10.5A 44.30 is requires off-street parking to be located at least 20 feet behind any facade. I presume this use is, or this site in the parking lot is vested from that requirement? Or are you suggesting that we need a variance?
Well, it would be, but if you change things, like make those parallel spaces, then has to come into conformance. So, like I said, if that plan is valid and you leave it as is, then you'd be vested.
All right.
Once you change, the configuration of it, it's got to come into compliance.
All right, because I'll send, I think I have another plan too that shows it even differently, but in front of the building, even older, maybe from the 60s. All right, so that could potentially require a variance. Then the second part of that is about 6.9 of the site plan regs, which is your screening requirements. And there are some changes that we're looking at for this property. The right side of the plan, or the east side, is currently a chain link fence. It starts back a little bit off the property. The neighbor has recently upgraded their fence right along, going parallel with Woodbury, or Maplewood, I mean. And so we are looking to upgrade that, take out that chain link fence and replace it with a stockade fence. And there currently is a stockade fence on the whole west side of the property. And talking with the client today about that comment, he said they're actually planning on updating all of the fencing to new 6-foot-high stockade fence, the side on the west and the east. Our plan only shows the east side getting modified. But they would like to do all of it. And so we are proposing to, we will make that change and update that for the screening. The rest of the lawn area on the west side, there's no proposed changes. And the building addition is almost entirely in a lawn area. So there'll be landscaping still on the back side of the building.
The abutter letter.
What's that say?
Did you see the abutter letter
Did I see
on the fence?
Did I see the what part of it?
Abutter letter?
Oh, no, I did not see an abutter letter.
Right, so there's the lady who owns this property sent a letter in, so it's on our, should be on our website.
All right.
Under public comment, yep. It's kind of long, but you should read it because she's claiming that the chain link fence is her fence. And then I would just read that so you're aware of her concerns. The other thing, the fence in the front yard can only be 4 feet and then it can step up.
All right.
So it can only be 4 feet to the setback line and then it can step up to 6 feet.
All right. Water services, we found those on the previous site plans. So my understanding is one is a sprinkler and one's domestic. I can see if the owner knows anything more about that, service history or anything.
Did you go into the structure and verify that there's 2 services coming in?
That's what we'll do, yeah. And if it's,
Thank you.
if we can find them, and hopefully we can.
Just, you know,
And then we plan to keep the,
diligence.
no, I don't know. We plan to keep the dumpster where it's located, and we can easily provide a Knox box to the building.
Yeah, we have no contact information. That's why I brought it up here. They can just reach out. We'll eventually, no rush.
All right.
All right, any additional comments?
Peter, even if the plan from the 90s was approved, the fact that the ADA space is not in conformance with the standards, would that need to be upgraded?
Is there an ADA space on that? Or-
Yeah, but it doesn't meet standards. It doesn't have an access aisle next to it.
It would theoretically if you stripe the space next to it,
Yeah,
but, and you can see it in the photo that, they basically built it the same way as that plan.
To comply with ADA, that might be allowable to comply with ADA.
Yeah.
Just to stripe that area. Well, it's on the 95 plan.
if you go back to the existing plan,
Oh, yeah.
Where's the van?
It's that one there, and then you can see it in the photo. They actually have it there, but then somebody's parked in
I see.
the spot next to it. The thought going with the parallel is it would at least allow the handicap visitor to have space to get out of their vehicle and versus the old
Wouldn't have
layout.
enough to meet the van requirement.
no, you need 16 feet in width for handicap.
Right, they would basically be using the aisleway for the handicap
Yeah,
getting out of the vehicle.
yeah, you can't have the access aisle be shared as a travel way. So that would be a problem. And with your ramp being on the inside, that, like the front walkway, you'd have to have your access aisle in there, put your parking space out to the north on the plan. And And this plan from the nineties only showed 11 spaces. There was only 2 parallel spaces up there in the corner, not 3.
It looks like 3, I mean, they are odd shaped, but
Yeah, but that one on the corner is definitely not a spot.
yeah.
Because they've got numbers in the corners, they've only got 11 numbers.
Oh, I see, yeah. And yeah, we could modify that. I mean, it sounds like that's not a bad idea to go back to this layout. If it allows for a lot of things, and then we can add the striped area for the handicap, and that still actually keeps us at the same number that's on the plan. Because we lose one in the parallel, but we would gain one in the front.
And my feeling, unless that plan is, we're allowed to keep that plan, I have big problems with the layout as it is. I mean,
With either?
yeah, I don't wanna see the 3 spaces up there in the corner.
But, and I don't think we would count these because they're not on the property.
Yeah.
It's just like the 581 Lafayette where they were,
And the spaces in front, whether they're parallel or head end, they're just, it's a bad spot there for parking.
Really just the 2 on one side and the 4 or 5 on the other.
Yeah.
And they're not in front of the building, so you wouldn't need a variance if you did away with the ones in front of the building. You'd need a conditional use permit, right? It won't-
maybe short 2 spaces. Is that,
Would the CUP be for the shortage of spaces then?
Yeah, or you could get a variance for the ones in front, but can they even be conforming in front of the building?
You know, because if the way it is now, you know, they're backing up into that little island there with a utility pole on it. Existing.
yeah.
Yep.
But with the parallel spaces, they wouldn't be backing up into the island, but the way they previously had it laid out, they were backing into all sorts of areas of the site.
So they need a variance to give it to a front, right? Unless they can show a plan that had it like this.
Right. So right, if you go with just the 7, you'd have to do conditional, or seek a conditional use permit, but that would also have to come back here for a, with your parking demand analysis. We'd have to see that before it goes to planning board.
And if the parking, historic parking layout is found to be approved, then we can keep, sounds like, a portion of that.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to the owner and client. I don't know if they could give up that much parking and be expected not to use it from time to time. With this building, that would get it down to 7 spaces, which is really lower than they need, I believe, but I'll verify that.
Peter, are you saying that if there's a parking plan approved years ago, that you can just choose to go back to that one? Even
Well,
though
if they
it
don't change it, you know, it's what it is.
Well,
And,
but it's not what it is, this isn't what it is now, though. It's different than what the historic plan was, right?
I believe so. The historic plan, I don't think was as detailed, and they used it that way, but if you go out there today, you won't see much for any striping.
Oh.
You know, most of the striping's just deteriorated
But if the city approved a plan,
Yeah,
they should be able to
the most recent
use
one,
the most recent one.
right.
Or they can get the CUP for one that doesn't comply. Or a variance if they have the parking in front of the building's the problem. That
Most recent striping was all head-in parking there. They got rid of the angle spaces.
Right, which could have just been done,
Yeah.
so,
It wore off.
without approval, yeah.
I mean, it almost does seem like they striped it per this plan, but not that that means that the plan was approved, like you said, but the,
Yeah, we'll need to just look into it.
all right, I guess you can let me know and then we can come back for another review either way.
Let me open it. Any public comment? Anyone on Zoom wishing to make a comment on this application? We're here, seeing none. Close that. And Joe, I would say, read that letter from the abutter, so you,
All right, yeah, will do. Thank you.
and then,
I make a motion to postpone. Second. To next month's PAC meeting.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item B, the request of Jeanette McDonald, owner for property located at 86 Farm Lane, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval and site plan review approval to subdivide one lot into 3 lots with associated improvements. Property on Assessment Map 236, Lot 74, lies within the single residence B district.
Good afternoon, Eric Weinberg with Altus Engineering. Also with me is Brett Berger with Flippin Burgers, who has a purchase and sales agreement on the McMaster parcel. Parcel is tax map 236, lot 74, 86 Farm Lane, owned by Jeanette McMaster, who may or may not get out of school in time to come and join us. What we're proposing is a 3-lot subdivision with 2 new homes and retaining the existing home at 86 Farm Lane. The new lots will be accessed off the existing Long Meadow Lane right away. In May of 2025, the Board of Adjustment granted variances to allow the development with undersized lots and less than the minimum lot frontage. And prior to that, we came to TAC in a work session format to discuss the layout, to get feedback from the city on the lot configuration, doing a hammerhead on making sure that the fire department was okay with it and DPW was okay with it. And we believe that the layout that we have was vetted in concept by you, and we went through the variance process. Following that, we completed a detailed existing conditions and boundary survey of the lot and the surrounding area. We also reached out to the DPW and get a copy of the GIS for that area so we could look at the off-site runoff impacts from the area, including, upslope from Meadow and further to the north and east where Long Meadow continues through. There are some funky things going on out there. We walked the property with Dave, and there's some double barrel sewer lines running through there, and what we figured out through getting the files from the city is not everyone here has been around long enough, but it was when the Omni Mall was built. And we didn't have the city didn't have adequate sewer capacity for the intended flow, and Omni Mall is where Home Depot is. That they did a bunch of off-site improvements and to improve down gradient capacity, and so when you see our plans, there's double sewer lines and all sorts of odd stuff. And the area out there beyond the site, the extension of Long Meadow You can see on the left side of the plan, there is a culvert crossing there that we're actually gonna tie into. Looks like they built part of the road bed, but it never got continued. It extends out to Betty's Dream, which the Betty's Dream parking lot is part of the right of way, and I don't even wanna think about how that happened or what goes. And it's kind of the segue into getting ahead of myself, that the plans say formerly Long Meadow Lane, that was what the surveyor came up with. I don't think that as we get further down the line, that we assign a street address to that the city's gonna want this Long Meadow, because it would be very confusing. The Long Meadow is not a contiguous roadway. So I don't know.
You don't need a street name if it's gonna look like that, cause it's only 2 houses off it.
3 houses, right?
Well, the one house
City
is also
Street.
fronting on farm, so we don't need a road name on that?
Not for only 2 driveways off of it. If you were 3, if the existing house with connection, yes, but not for 2.
Even though it is a,
City Street.
It's a city street.
It's a city street?
yes, that's.
I guess I don't understand, so I'll stay out of it.
Yeah.
Confusing.
That's actually part of what forced us down, part of the road design and so forth, is that we can't have a private right-of-way in a city,
Yeah.
private access in a city right-of-way.
Acceptable city street or
Yeah.
like recognized city street.
So somewhere down the line, we'll need to, I guess, rename that street.
Short Middle Lane. Short Street. We have a short street.
South Long Meadow.
South Long Meadow.
Short Meadow.
Short
So getting back to the plan, the existing house will stay. There's a pool and deck in the backyard. Both will be removed because one will be over the property line, the other is in the setback. So the deck and the pool are removed as part of the site improvements and be moving forward with the project. We also, Long Meadow Lane right away, as you can see in the plan, goes through the shed of the abutter to the towards the Spalding, kind of the west, as well as their driveway and their hedgerow. And so what we did is instead of causing a problem with them, we're shifting the roadway and adding some right-of-way, about 14 feet, towards Jeanette's existing house, 86, to shift the road, and then once we get past their property, we shift it back fully into the right-of-way. So that's why there's a funky little jog in the roadway. The roadway is designed meeting city standards as far as gravel sections, pavement, and slope. What we're doing is requesting a waiver for road width, just because it does only serve 2 homes. We are providing no parking signs along the roadway, which we believe from the comments, and I knew where those came from. But we'll need traffic and safety approval for that. Excuse me. The left side of the road, we're proposing slope granite curb all the way down. That way we'll prevent any runoff from discharging towards the abutter's property, collected into a catch basin at the bottom of the roadway. On the right side, it will be slope granite curb essentially to the first driveway. And we did that to avoid creating a swale and having a significant cut as the grade comes up toward the McMaster house. And there's a specimen tree between McMaster house and the road that we want to make sure that we preserve. Then if you can go to the grading plan. No. Yeah, roadway plan is fine. So we have 2 bioretention basins. One's on the middle lot and one's on the back lot. The one in the middle lot treats runoff coming from part of the back of the McMaster house. Even better. as well as the middle lot, the lot 2, and the right side of the roadway up to the driveway. The second pond treats primarily runoff from right side of the road from the Hammerhead, the turnaround area, and lot 3. Both of those are combined and then discharged down the city right-of-way to an existing drain manhole that's in cross-country that will tie into the city drainage and then eventually down to Hodgson Brook. The catch basin in the street have a deep sump and a hood, and the bioretention basins are under-drained. The one in the middle lot, Dave came out and witnessed test pits that I did out there with really poor soils. The second test pit was a little bit better, so we are providing a little bit of infiltration in that. And the way the site naturally grades is that it's a depression, and basically where the bioretention basin on lot 3 is a hole, and so the water doesn't ever leave there. And so what we did is, and the water naturally ponds up and goes on to the abutting property to the north. So how we modeled the runoff is we oversized it to ensure that in all storms modeled, that the ponding that occurs in that area is lower than what the ponding occurs there, existing development, existing conditions, so that we're not making that ponding any worse on the abutting property. We're proposing a new hydrant up on opposite Clover Lane, service the site, and a water line to service in the street to service the 2 homes. We do have the comments from the city and have no issue on changing the configuration. We initially had 1 tap and then hydrant coming off of that, and then reducing in size and serving the site. We're gonna have a direct tap off the main and farm, serve the hydrant, and then a second tap to serve the 2 lots. There were a couple typos on the subdivision plan on the lot area. Lot 1 was off by, I don't know why, 24 square feet. Lot 2 was off by 14 square feet, and lot 3 was off by 2 square feet. I have no clue as to why or how that occurred, but someone asked the question on the lot area calculations. This is in response to the comments that came to us from Stephanie. We'll change the language regarding the access easement to Sunset if the road is ever continued through. I doubt in any of our lifetimes that will happen just because of Betty's dream, but we'll certainly do that. The green dots on C3 are actually trees that the surveyor had picked up. Comment 6 is we'll install the hydrant directly off Farm Lane, and we'll add a note regarding that the 14-inch asbestos concrete pipe is a hazardous waste and has to be dealt with accordingly when they tie into it. We'll work with the city and city attorney on the appropriate language for the easements, and the easements why we have easements on all of them, because there is drainage from, it's not just lot 2 drainage runs into lot 3 a little bit, and each lot has impacts other lots, so as well as the city drainage, so we'll just work with the city on that. Eliminate the stop sign. Eric, do you want us to eliminate the stop bar too? No, that wasn't my comment. What's that? That wasn't you?
No, just wait for me.
Do you want the stop bar, Dave?
Don't need either.
Okay. we'll change the water services to 1 inch. And we'll request to get on the agenda for traffic and safety for the signs, no parking, and modify the signs. Amount of words. You have anything yet?
You got it. You're okay with the other comments, the signage,
Which one?
12 and 13? Sign,
Yes, we're fine with all the sign comments. It's,
words before you got to
I'm,
this.
yeah, it's, I thought I said I'm fine with the signs and out of words, so.
Unless you wanna keep parking on the road, then you don't have to come to BS.
Well, I just, I mean, I put the no parking signs based on when we did 550 Sagamore. They had shorter driveways, and it was a cul-de-sac, and it was a private road. And it was a narrower road, so that's why I put that on, plus, so I just felt that it was something that fire department would probably wanna say.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a city road, we'll have to figure out whatever that's gonna be, so I don't know what I defer to everyone else on that.
BTS next meeting's in April,
Okay. So how do we get on the agenda?
just send me an email.
Okay.
I really don't like that squiggle in the road. I was wondering if you could, think about not having the road centered in the right of way and just doing that so that it's easier to plow and maintain and back up in and all the other things. Move that transformer to a better spot.
I mean, we could certainly look
It's
at
just,
doing
it's just
that.
unnecessary, really.
On the only issue in doing that may impact our lot areas, because it looks like you're squeezing lot 2 a little bit.
No, I'm not changing lot areas, I'm just moving the pavement inside the right of way.
Okay.
So it's straighter.
Can you email me your pen scratches?
Yeah. We can do that.
It's gonna make me shake not putting the road down the center of the.
I know. I get it. It's kind of out of the box thinking.
Saying just closer, less of a curve right there.
That's it? Okay.
I open up for public comment. Anyone here on Zoom wanna make any comments? Seeing none.
Wait for me,
Huh?
because it's hard to find the raised hand.
Right.
So what's confining that rain garden on the right side of the right rain garden?
Yeah,
What's going on there?
or does
What do
this,
you mean, what's
is this-
confining it?
is this the
Is
rest
it
of
gonna
it?
flow onto the city property?
No, so it's in a butter to the north. That's what I was saying, is that we're depressing that lower than what's there now to make sure that it doesn't flood as high as it does now. So that's a natural depression. And I don't know if it's truly natural, but it's a depression today. And so no water leaves that area. What we modeled pre-development on 2/10/25, and we made sure that in the post-development condition, that we made that pond large enough with the proposed impervious, that in the 2/10/25, we're lower, and I believe we are lower.
The 38 contour goes on to the neighbor's property.
So the change in elevation in the 2 is 0.04 feet lower. 10-year is a half a foot, and the 25 is 0.73 feet lower. So the water will pond lower than it does today. So we're not gonna be ponding
That's the
onto that
existing
road.
contour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this also needs site plan, and Eric and I have talked, so he's preparing the additional checklist and stuff for site plan review.
Okay.
So probably come back.
Come back at the same meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the straight
With the
street.
road change.
I do have one other question, similar to 409 Lafayette, where we had I'll call it, that's a back lot. Do you want street addresses out front or something like what we just had done on that?
I would recommend a sign out there pointing, so, well, if they're gonna make this a different street name, then it won't matter, there'll be a street sign.
Yeah, so I have a street.
I just don't know which way it's.
This is a public road, so that's would be,
So
Right,
probably,
but that's
where
not,
the other one wasn't.
but that's not gonna continue to be Long Meadow Lane.
Correct.
Right. Okay, that's the important.
it's not,
It's real estate road.
We can't, because it just, you would
well, the whole thing's Long Meadow if it goes all the way to Betty's Green.
It can't,
now.
it cannot stay Long Meadow because it's just
Both
contiguous.
Yeah.
Right.
Be short meadow.
Choose one.
Well, I think that it would make sense that this has a new name
Is there
because it
anything
would
on, is Betty's Dream on Long Meadow? It is.
through
75.
Long Meadow.
I know that, but in terms of the street address.
Yeah.
75
Long
Long Meadow.
Meadow, yep.
So what's that process, is after we're approved or?
Yeah, we'll ask the
That's
city
right.
council to approve it. First, fire and DPW and E911 all review
You'll
it.
suggest a list of names, then
There is, you have a.
If you suggest a name, that would be the way to go,
we won't, you suggest.
even though it's a public one. Usually it's private, so, but we can talk about that. We might wanna pick the name ourselves, but if you suggest one, we'll add it to the consideration.
The Fosis way.
There's already one.
There's already one.
We already have one.
Then we'll have to
But
go
we
to
can use
Brett's.
another one. Can't have too many.
Another
DeVos Street, maybe. All right.
It is correct.
I'll get back to you. I think there is a list of city names we sometimes try to use too, or it's public, so we might do that, but I'll be in touch with you about that.
Okay,
I'll look into that.
so we'll,
But it will have a new name. That's what we're all agreeing on.
I think the big item is realigning the roadway.
A little bit.
Like,
Tweak.
yeah,
Just a little tweak.
just a couple buttons.
Just enough.
All right, do I have a motion to continue or postpone to?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, moving along. Item C, the request of Hope for Tomorrow Foundation owner for property located at 315 Banfield Road, requesting amended site plan approval for the construction of a 2,115 square foot library addition to the existing 24,150 square foot St. Patrick's Academy School building with associated site improvements. Property is on Assessor Map 266, Lot 5, and lies within the industrial district. Floor is yours.
All right, my name is Corey Belden. with Altus Engineering, and I'm here with Brian LaRoche from Oak Point Associates, the architects of the project, and James Malone, who is the head of schools for St. Patrick's Academy. So this is a, on the face, very simple, small project. It's a 2,115 square foot library addition to the school. There's no increase in student enrollment, staffing, or anything for the project. It's just to provide a larger library space and some additional renovations to the building to accommodate the current staffing and enrollment at the school. The project, again, 22,115 square feet addition. The existing building is approximately 24,150. Gymnasium, about 17,000 square feet. There's the site impervious increases from, it was 15.9% to 16.3% for the site. We did provide a drainage memorandum addressing the small increase in impervious area, which will drain to the existing stormwater system, closed drainage system, and to the rain garden located in the north east portion of the site. We ran the numbers, we ran the HydroCAD and showed that we still have a decrease from the pre-development conditions and the capacity to handle the small increase in flow. Again, there's no additional parking, not a lot of site improvements to the project. Rerouting the sidewalk, walkway around the building is the major site, additional site improvements outside of the building. We will be providing, there are renovations inside the existing footprint of the building to provide 4 single unit bathroom stalls. So we're proposing to run a new sewer line connection out to the existing sewer that's running from the gymnasium back. We did receive some comments in advance of the meeting saying that the sewer line should be upgraded from a 4-inch to a 6-inch, which we have no problem doing that. One of the comments, we do have did show an external clean out right at the building for the sewer. We'll keep that there. There was a comment, I believe, to also add a clean out at the connection point. Can you, Peter, could you go to the next sheet? Yeah, so, or maybe the next one. There we go, yeah. So where that green proposed sewer line is, I believe there was a comment to add a sewer clean out at the connection point to the new line. If 6-inch line, we would prefer not to, and I don't know who made the comment, that it's a 6-inch line coming from the building and the connection that's in the middle of their soccer field. So if that is a requirement, we would basically coming out the building, we would try to 90 it or not, go run.
I think we can waive that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other stuff that's
Okay.
more important.
Yep.
All right, so sewer, we're good. I think, let's see, well, jump into the first comment, which was that this is an expansion of a non-conforming use and a variance would be required. So we did receive the St. Patrick's Academy received the zoning variance in 2016 for the use of a elementary school on the property. It's our understanding that this is an allowed use on the property and that this is not an expansion of a non-conforming use. There's no expansion of use. There's an existing library. We're expanding the space, but not the use on the school. And additionally, when we submitted for the gymnasium, which was a much larger project back in 2019, We also submitted, I have the application letter saying that the gymnasium is an additional amenity to the existing school and not an expansion of use. And it was concurred at that point that and we did not receive, need to go for an expansion, for a zoning variance for an expansion of a non-conforming use at that time as well. So our opinion would be that that it is conforming and that we hope that we don't have to go for it.
And our opinion is that they made an error at that time, and this is how we would treat it. And just because they didn't catch it then, we think it needs to go for that, because it is, the whole use is getting bigger. Even though you're saying it's within the use of the school, I understand that, but.
So the use, again, it's a library.
It's a bigger footprint, the school has a bigger footprint.
So any expansion of space is an expansion of use.
Well, this significant expansion of space, it was a little tiny, addition, so you could put an egress door or something in, that'd be different, but if it's this much, then yeah.
So, and again, the other piece of that is that it's a currently non-conforming use,
The school,
Well,
it got a variance to be a conforming use.
it got a variance, right, so we also have the notice of decision from back in 2016 that says that it applies to the property and that the zoning, that the allowed use applies to the property, so I'm not the attorney.
I think what they was presented to the zoning board was the school, and they were approving that application, that request. It didn't give them freedom to just expand on the property. I mean, if they had said, we'll approve this with, if you want to have a
If
map.
the actual parcel is therefore granted this use change in
For
the
this
language,
specific,
then
for
it
this
would be different.
specific project, right?
Right,
Yeah.
versus the
That was
project.
shown.
Right, if they had
Certainly
said
any
with any other future expansions or something like that.
Right, we'd certainly have to go through planning board for future expansion, but the use of a school with its accessories is granted to the property,
As long as that's what it says.
that's what it
What does
says.
the, does it specifically say, this parcel is now,
Not how I read it.
right, so that would be the,
But it was what was presented to the board.
understood. Depending on what the approval actually says too, though, it might have some bearing. Because there could be a scenario in which the board could say this parcel is now granted for the following use, but it may not say that.
My interpretation, I'm not the land use attorney. We certainly went through this prior, we had it was never brought up that it was an expansion of the use of the school and accessory uses associated with the school are part of the granted use on the property. So again, I don't know if I'm gonna get anywhere as not being the land use attorney on this project and talking to this board.
No, that's our position, so you would need a variance to go forward to the planning board, is what our position is. So we can talk about all the things TAC wants you to do, but in terms of the use, that will need a variance.
Would you, has everybody, have you all, you read the notice of decision from the 2016?
We can look at it again if you want,
Okay.
but.
I appreciate that, and maybe we'd have their legal.
Yeah, you can have the
Talk to
attorney
you
write
about
a
it.
letter and you can appeal the administrative decision. So instead of going for the variance, you could appeal the administrative decision to the Board of Adjustment and say, we disagree with the decision of staff. And that would be fine too, but that's where we stand on it.
Okay, so current school operating as a non-conforming use on the property.
Well, it got permission.
Yeah, 'cause
It
you
got
Got
permission
permission
to
to do that,
Got permission to operate as non-conforming.
the school did. The question is whether the gymnasium needs to come in for the variance as well, I guess.
Well, I think that's,
Probably water under the bridge
Yeah.
at this point, because they didn't catch it.
and it got approvals and was constructed.
Yeah, so it's there. So this is an expansion of a non-conforming. A pre-existing lawful non-conforming.
Again, our opinion would be that it's not a non-conforming use and it's a granted use on the property per the zoning variance, and this is just not an expansion of the use, it's an expansion of the space.
It's definitely
There's no
expansion
change
of
in
the use. In any, I think in any land use board, that use is expanding, whether or not you feel or it's, interpreted that it was granted. I feel that's a different story, but I couldn't think of any land use board that would say that you're not expanding the use.
By
the use is
making a
getting
larger
bigger.
library.
You
Bigger
may not be introducing more occupants, but
Correct.
the use, which is the school use, is
I
now
mean,
getting bigger.
it would, and
Yeah.
again, I'm
It's
not the
like a
land use
junkyard,
attorney,
the
but,
most basic
if you expand the playground, is that expansion of use? I guess so, right?
Sure. Same with a junkyard.
Add a jungle gym,
Yeah.
add
Add
a,
footprint.
so there's a lot of
Space.
pieces, and these are all accessory uses applied to the school that were approved under.
Yeah, it's one of the
Zoning
challenges of
areas,
citing something in an area that's not zoned for it. So it just gets looked at closer, the Board of Adjustment has to review it. And that argument, you can make that argument to the Board of Adjustment that you're not expanding the use, it's still the same school.
And I'll just read one thing and then we can close this topic. It will be, this is from the notice of decision from the zoning variance in 2016. It will be accommodated in an area of transition with a number of complementary uses on the school, so that there is no fair and substantial relationship between an elementary school use not being allowed in the table of uses in an industrial zone and applying that limitation specifically to this property. This site is compatible with this use. So that was our interpretation, that was what was written, that was where we based our interpretation from, and I think what was, the interpretation was in 2018 when the school added the gymnasium, but I guess we understand your opinion, I don't know if that changes. Sounds like it doesn't, so so we'll move on.
Major issue I think we have is the traffic.
Well,
That is the minor
that
issue.
is
This is a massive issue. We were promised that was not gonna happen.
So let's see, let's go to the parking, we'll say that one for last. Provide replacement easement to make up for access path taken by drainage impoundment pond. Was that the pond up in the northeast corner of the project?
It's along the.
So, Peter, I had sent some attachments, do you mind opening up those attachments?
Were they in the email?
I put them on Viewpoint, ViewCloud. If not, I have, I also printed hard copies, so.
Yeah.
So, one, but you could, I don't know if I only printed 12, so.
That's all right, we can share.
But anyway, the path runs basically along that, is shown along that property line. It was shown there in the original submittals. There's about 40 feet of undisturbed area between the pond and that property line. So I was just, if you look at second page of the packets that I'm sending, really that red line is approximately the limits of where that path was shown on the easement deed language, and it's really, in our opinion, again, the pond construction was constructed as permitted in the plans and not impacting that easement, so.
The thing that looks like a sidewalk is the easement. You're saying it can be built where it's shown?
I was saying, yeah, that's that winding sidewalk, and it runs pathway that runs along the property line, adjacent to the property line. That's where it was permitted and shown in the easement language and in the recorded plans back in 2016. And nothing, we have not gotten within, say, almost 40 feet of that. There is a wooded area there, but that's where that easement was shown and always has been shown, and we haven't changed anything from the plans to impact that, so.
Is this the easement, this fourth page, the easement itself?
Let's see, the third page shows, again, shows the, well, that's the as-built plan, but that shows the easement, the location. There was never a meets and bounds description for the easement that was done. It was just an easement for
A 10-foot wide path.
pathway as shown on the plan. So that's, and that's where the location was shown, and again, we don't think we've changed anything from where it was shown to impact that area.
What you're saying is that this could be built today in the original location?
Well,
that
there'd
was
have to be
agreed?
some grading and some, possibly some. But there's nothing restricting the construction of that in that area. As far as stormwater and rain gardens and utilities, there's grading and there's, potentially tree removals that might have to happen in that area. I think the aerial shows maybe a better, that second sheet in that plan shows it's hard to say, but I certainly think it can be done and work, you just.
To the last comment.
Okay, so, final comment? Yeah, so, comment is there are significant public safety issues with cars queuing on Banfield Road, and this must be addressed as part of this application, and certainly, we understand, there's a queue period at pickup and drop-off times. I'm certainly aware that I have two kids myself. I have a freshman at Portsmouth High School. I drop him off every morning at the high school. There's a queue that comes out. I'm parked on, Lafayette Road, waiting to take a right-hand turn, pretty much every morning. So I understand everybody deals with this, and it's an issue with schools and drop-offs. I know that Eric and met with James, I believe a few weeks ago, to discuss the concern about traffic backing up on the road. There's been, I believe, some modifications. They're trying, because luckily this is a private school, so they can change times of drop-off. So they're staggering and creating more of a gap between the younger kids and the older kid drop-off time, trying to make that, I believe, a half hour apart. And then also notifying parents to not get there early for your drop-off time, and trying to, do what they can to to mitigate and minimize, the impacts during those times to Banfield Road. So I believe the school is 100% willing to work with the city and try to do what they can to minimize those impacts and they're trying to do that now and take steps to do that. So continue to work with Eric and the city to do that. So.
It's a real bad situation out there. I mean, I think you need to find ways to store those vehicles on the site. Because it is, as you know, it's very difficult to control parents when they arrive. Everybody wants to be there first and not wait in line. And it's, you need more storage space on site somehow, somewhere, some way.
I think back years ago when they first opened, they were double stacking them, but we're told they can't double stack, put 2 rows of cars because they need to keep an open aisle open for maybe emergency access fire during drop-off times. So that, again, reduced some of that storage capacity on site. There's
You need to widen it so you have 3 lanes wide. You need to do something.
Yeah, could you widen it to do 3 lanes? Could you create a storage parking lot, where cars could go and wait, I guess, or whatever, I don't know. If there's something.
If there's any abutting land that's available to create a parking lot on, or another way in, another access drive into the school where they could store up. Widen Banfield Road, store them on in a long left turn lane out there and a right turn lane. I mean, it definitely needs some storage somewhere to get these vehicles on the site and off of Banfield Road.
I have not been in discussions and really may not be fully aware of the the conditions and which turn is where is it the AM, is it the PM, is it the left hand turn in, is it the right hand turn in, what the backup is. So I'm not, I don't want to say I know exactly what the situation is because I don't. Maybe, but I think there's options that they can look at to every turnout. Like people can't turn left on the way out; it has to go right. Like making only right outs, so that would help with the flow. That you're not stopping. And you're keeping cars moving on the exit. So that's a discussion that we had. That might be one of the solutions that can be tried and make sure that everyone exiting is always taking a right-hand turn. There's they can talk to the parents and try to get them to approach, even if you're coming to try to go around and come in so that you're entering as a right-hand turn as well, to try to keep that back, to try to keep, prevent that left turn in, which I'm not 100%, I don't know exactly what the situation is and where that backup is. Is it that if it's that left-hand turn trying to turn in the morning and they're getting blocked to do something like that?
It needs to be studied.
They're stacking up on the shoulder for the right turns in, and they're stacking up on Banfield Road for the left turns in, and it's, many cars out there. It's both directions in the PM. I haven't been in the AM, but in the PM I've seen it. It's
And inevitably what you have happen when you have them queuing up facing both east and west, and what we've seen, our officers that work that side of town are pretty cued into the patterns of life, if you will, what happens on their beat, so they're kind of seeing it, and
they kind of brought it to me as a concern that they've seen, and I know they've talked to the school about it as well, so, nobody's saying that the school's, refusing to work with us on it, but yeah, the queuing causes people impatient on both sides to then go around the queuing cars. And we had a pretty substantial head-on crash there within the last couple of months because of drivers cutting around the queuing cars to try to traverse Banfield. We've had some road rage type incidents out there of the same thing, so typically there's not a lot of instances of patrol officers bringing forth a problem in the city unless it is really something they're seeing that happens on their side of town that they're like, hey, this needs to get looked at. But it doesn't happen very frequently, but this was one that came up from the officers that are out there every day, probably from the officer that took the crash report. Like, this seems like it could be prevented.
So based on that, I'm gonna make a motion to, do we have public comment?
Let me see if there's any public comment. Anyone want to make any public comments on this?
This obviously needs additional study.
No public comment.
Yeah, I mean, we're not expecting you to have an answer today, but we want you to understand that, and we're looking for some kind of solution. That,
It's gotta be more than signs or, telling people when to show up. It has to be something physical where you can store these vehicles, get them off the road, or safely stored in the road somewhere. Like adding another lane to Banfield Road or something. The problem is your location out there on Banfield, you're in a fairly rural area. There's not a lot of connecting streets around, and if someone's gonna go left out of the site, they're not gonna go right. That takes them so far out of their way. It's just not realistic to ask that type of restriction. And there's no way to enforce it unless you build a median island out there in Banfield Road and physically prohibit turns in. But it's something that, there needs to be a physical solution to it rather than a verbal solution or signage.
So I would recommend that you work with Eric on that before you come back so that we're not all listening to back and forth. Okay. So I'm gonna make a motion to postpone this.
yeah, to the next month meeting at least, and then hopefully they'll have it dealt with it by then.
So a second.
I'll second it, sorry, if he's okay with next month, yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, item D of new business, the request of Paul J. Griffin, Family Trust owner, property located at 0 South Street and Richards Avenue, requesting preliminary and final subdivision, approval to subdivide one lot into two conforming lots with associated improvements. Property is on Assessor Map 112, lot 24A, and is in the general residence district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Technical Advisory Committee, John Chagnon from Haley Ward, representing the applicant, Chidwick Development. And also here today is Alex Monastero, who's with the development team. So I'll go through and discuss the project, because I believe this is the first time other than TAC workshop, so this is the first official TAC meeting. And I think there was some public interest, so project is subdividing an existing lot at the corner of Richards Avenue and South Street into two parcels. And the lot is, the property lines pretty much coexist with the existing fencing that surrounds this area that is pretty well known in the community as a place where sheep pastured for many years, and that was the purpose of it until such time as there was a change in the family dynamic. The property is owned by the Peter Griffin Trust, and it's shown on this existing conditions plan. There's a few trees on it, but it's mostly just lawn area. Total area is 17,459 square feet. We're providing two lots which both meet the area and frontage requirements of the zoning ordinance. It's in a GRA district, and developing this into single-family residence is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. Across the street is cemetery land, but there are residential lots up and down the street. Each residence is gonna have a two-car garage in addition to two driveway spaces, and as we get into the plans later, we'll show you, there was some discussion about whether one entrance or two entrances is appropriate. And we've settled on each residence having its own 20-foot paved driveway. Combining into one driveway is not optimal here because of the requirements for separations of the building would push the building envelope to less than desirable. There's generally the planned development is showing preliminary design. It's a subdivision, but we understand the nature of the development that we are showing some conceptual buildings so that we can look at the development on the site and deal with issues such as access, utilities, and stormwater. The residents will be served by municipal water within South Street and municipal sewer on Richards Avenue. So there is a sewer desert, so to speak, along South Street in front of the parcel, so that the sewer needs to go through an easement in the back and out to Richards Avenue. And that's a part of the site development plan set, is that utility easement. As far as stormwater management goes, the design team and Sean Toby will be here today, did the stormwater management design and included a Ferguson Arc Tank underground stormwater detention system, as it's currently lawn and pasture going to development. There's increased impervious surface, impervious cover. So the design includes drainage attenuation to meet the peak. There's some flow that does go to the west to Richards Avenue, and some flow that does drain off-site to the abutting properties to the north. And the analysis is showing that the drainage is decreasing. We're reducing pre-development flow rates with the drainage system that has been shown on the plan we're going forward with. And the design is preliminary. It's intended to show what can be done. Updated final plans would be a part of a building permit application. So there's no additional site lighting other than the usual driveway and building lighting. And underground services would be provided for natural gas, electric, and communication. Although we're proposing to add a pole at the property line as the overheads are on the opposite side of South Street. Solid waste would be curbside pickup. Looking at the plan set, if you want to sort of thumb through there, there's a little cover sheet. I think this general notes plan, existing conditions plan showing the boundary, the site topography, and whatever street utilities existing, and then we have the subdivision plan. So it's basically two lots, pretty well divided, new line down the middle, and we show the setbacks, so there's plenty of setback area to provide for the construction of two homes, two single-family homes, one on each lot. Then there's a site layout plan. As I said, this is preliminary, showing potential dwellings with access, driveways to South Street with the appropriate turning out of the garage, so that there is a possibility most times that the exiting car would front the street. some sidewalk connections to the front door, and we're showing some patio spaces and deck spaces on one of the buildings in the back. The plan also has all the dimensional conformance, square footages. Then there's a utility plan, which includes grading, showing the proposed water and sewer connections, and the R-tank systems that would delineate and lower the peak, leaving flow. There's the usual site detail sheets, and then I wanted to note that sheets 701 and 702 show existing and proposed subcatchment areas. And if you look at the subcatchment area 2, which is on the north and flows off to abutting properties, the area of that is decreased. The building that's proposed would be guttered and directed to the stormwater management system. So there would be a decrease of area flowing to that abutting property to the north. That's the presentation. We have comments that we received from committee members. It's appropriate to go through that at this time. And also we provided some updated plans. So the first comment is the shared driveway comment, which we did look at and try to work with, but we would want to space out the buildings considerably more to be able to have the maneuvering space to make that work. And it just cuts into the building envelopes. So we're going with 2 driveways, which we feel is allowable. Second comment, a right-of-way easement with a 10-foot radius should be donated to the city of Portsmouth in case future roadway improvements are needed at the Richards and South intersection. So plans have been updated, the subdivision plan, there's a detail on the lower right, a blow-up detail with a 10-foot radius easement area and a note near the street that says proposed easement to the city of Portsmouth, 48 square feet. So that's been added to the plans and also shown on the site layout plan. Third comment is that the sidewalk on South Street shall be concrete and no less than 6 foot in width. Just the existing asphalt sidewalk to the proper grade beyond the lot 2 frontage. So the plans have been revised to show a 6-foot concrete sidewalk along South Street. And the sidewalk expansion has cut into the green space to get that extra foot, just holds to the property. So there's no sidewalk easement or private part of the sidewalk that's not in the city's right of way. Comment 4, sewer laterals shall be no less than 6-inch diameter, PVC SDR 35 gasketed. And that's been updated on the facility plan. Comment 5, 10-inch PVC pipe is an uncommon size, recommend using 8-inch. And sheet C102, grading utility and drainage plan has been revised to all previously noted 10-inch. Callouts are shown as 8-inch PVC. And comment 6, grading and drainage plan needs a note that all roof lines are to be diverted or guttered or otherwise routed into the respective R-tank systems. And note 4 has been revised to address the comment, updated wording providing more clarity. So there was a comment that was sent to the portal, and I would just like to address that before we go any further in public comment from Mr. Thomas Nees, and I, and he asked that the city look carefully at the drainage as it might impact the property. And what we can say is that the he's talking about soil studies, more refined soil analysis. The soil type is not going to impact the reduction of drainage that I've mentioned, to the north, to the abutting property, because we've reduced the area. All the impervious is now being collected, and, so the soil type is somewhat irrelevant to the fact that we're reducing the area and we're not gonna have an impact to that abutting property. That covers a lot of what has been put forth in his letter. And talks about parking though, a final comment about parking and during construction, and so I think that's something to the development team is aware of now and will pay close attention to. I think there's probably a good chance that there could be some access along that back utility corridor during construction for people to pull off, because it is a busy street with sidewalk access to the school twice a day, and it's a major thoroughfare. So that's our presentation. If you got any questions, you got answer questions and ask that you move us along to the next step.
Any comments or questions?
I'm just gonna push back a little on the 1 versus 2 entrances, just given that, you know, when I leave here in the evening or when I go out in the afternoon, that's a busy intersection and the traffic backs up past where these driveways will be. So it's gonna be a little easier, I think, with just one driveway. And it seems to me like you could pull in, the way this is designed here, straight through and go into the garage, turn left or turn right into a garage. And you could put parking right behind that as a storage area.
So if you go to the site plan, you can see the, I believe it's 18 feet to the property line from the, here, this,
18, the house, front of the house.
from the house to the edge of the house to the property line is 18 feet, or 19 and a half, something in that range. Its dimension, though, if you go up with the arrow to where those dimensions are, yeah, right there, yeah. So what you're saying is if you come in with a,
Came in here.
Straight
came in there and then went left and right,
Left into the garage.
you could go left and right into the garage, but that whole entire space is gonna be needed for maneuvering. So you
Oh, you
can't
have-
have the extra parking that you get with having your own driveway where you can park in front of the garage.
Couldn't you put the same thing you have there behind instead of in front? A parking area to park a second car.
Then you'd be significantly increasing the impervious area.
We wouldn't have to have it in front as well.
What's it?
You could switch it. Instead of having it in front, you have it in back.
And what in the back?
Extra parking,
Extra space.
extra pavement.
Extra pavement in the back.
There's a big drop off there.
Yeah, it's a grading thing, and then the
I understand what you're
runoff is.
saying,
It's
but
just
I
gonna
don't think
be, I
it's
guess,
practical.
I'm pushing back because I feel for the people who are gonna live there. Getting in and out at South Street is gonna be a challenge. And, you know, it seems like it'd be easier if there's just one of them doing it. And people walking on the sidewalk are gonna have 2 driveways to think about instead of one, that they're walking their kids across when they're going to school. It just reduces a lot of potential conflicts.
Not to, just to play devil's advocate too, it's interesting, you say that you witness vehicles backing all the way up past lot 2.
Yeah.
So what does it even matter then, 1 or 2? At least if there's 2, then the people that are living in the homes have an opportunity to get into their respective driveways, you know? They're not
They still
sharing.
have an
a
opportunity though, they're not losing that opportunity.
They're right,
There's
they just
only one.
wouldn't be sharing a driveway, they'd have their own,
Okay, well, I mean,
I
you're
think
right.
there's a number
By
of-
right, you can do it, and if you can make it work, I'm just,
Yeah, I understand, we understood the
Explore-
comment, and we
explore
did
it.
look at that
Yeah, I
in
see
the
that.
initial, you know, trying to lay out the homes, and make this work well. It was thought about, but it didn't rise to the level of working with the way the lot development was.
Peter, did you suggest maybe just getting rid of the first driveway on lot 1 and connecting lot 2 and 1, so you drive in 1 and then shoot right through?
Yeah, I don't think it matters specifically where it is, but yeah, I think anything could just make it one, but that's even more. Maybe more gymnastics even to do that, but.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it meets standards. It's up to the planning board to approve this or not. I've looked at it, I think it's okay. I understand your concern, but trying to piggyback one driveway onto the other lot is just gonna make it worse, I think.
In order to use that turnaround, they have to park in the garage, because if they just park in front of the garage, they'll have to back out onto South Street anyways.
Can't do that.
That's physically what they'd have to do if they're not parked in the garage. If they're just parked in the driveway in front of the garage, they'll have to back out.
Yeah,
That turnaround.
but you can do that on a residential lot, single-family lot, you can do that. And, once you get into the shared driveways, you have to, a whole other level of maintenance agreements and, you know.
Yep.
People want to be able to control their own destiny.
That's true.
All right, I'm gonna open it up for public comment. Anyone present or on Zoom wishing to make a comment? Go. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments that addressed at least two of my issues. I do still remain a little bit concerned about how pedestrians will be protected in the morning and afternoon during school hours. I do think that something should be done by the construction company to limit deliveries during that time period. This is heavily traveled by school children twice a day, walking to school. And I'm just nervous about a pretty busy construction site, getting deliveries at the time that the kids are transiting. This all assumes that construction is going on during the school year, of course, but it seems likely that at least a couple months that will be happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Close the comment portion. Further discussion?
You anticipate building the house at the same time? Around the same time?
I guess that would depend on the market, you know. I don't know if you wanna answer that, Alex, but.
Yeah, I mean, the intent is that these will be collaboration style homes where buyers can come and pick a plan and we'll build it for them. So they're, you know, our intent is not to build one and then build a second one, but they might not be on the exact same timeline, but within a vicinity of each other.
If you have buyers concurrently, then you start construction.
That's right.
Concurrently, right, it's market driven.
One of them will take longer to finalize their plans, but, you know, a couple weeks we're talking.
So would it be possible to have maybe one construction entrance? Try to limit the amount of points where construction vehicles are coming and going.
We could take a look at that for sure.
Yeah, but they can't control if somebody buys the lot and wants to sit on it for 5 years because they still live in San Francisco or something, you know.
Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, but they're hearing your comments and they're hearing the neighborhood comments for sure, yep. Big change.
Okay, I don't have anything
Landscape.
else.
I don't either.
The streetscape.
I'd recommend approval to the planning board. I didn't have any stipulations. Do you guys have any stipulations?
These questions here. I believe when their sidewalk gets replaced, there are permits that state where pedestrians need to walk around, so that could assuage some of the concerns on, you know, pedestrians, especially the school children. So I really have nothing else.
Is that a second?
That's a second.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we get to apply to planning board?
Yeah, that's all. Put your hard copy and so.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.